to have you all here. All Americans, I believe. Now, you in the front down here, you're not Baptists.
Nope.
No.
Oh, no, Baptists never sit in the front row. What they tell us anyhow.
I'd just like to tell you that you've got the best guide in
But
the
he's
garden.
not going to, though. He's not going to. Everybody else tells. Okay, are we all in now? My name is Ken. It's good to have you here. Welcome to the Garden Tomb. This garden is owned by a group of Christians in England known as the Garden Tomb Association. And they bought this place in 1894 because they believed it was a garden that was once owned by Joseph, who came from the village of Arimathea. And the Bible tells us that Joseph from Arimathea had permission from Pontius Pilate to take the dead body of Jesus from the cross, place it in his own private sepulchre, and it was from Joseph's sepulchre that Christ was gloriously raised from the dead. Now, when I say that, we've got a bit of a problem. Not about the resurrection, there's no problem about the resurrection, but down in the old city is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and that's been there since the year 324, when Queen Helena had a dream and saw in her dream the place where it all happened, got her son Constantine and Macarius to tear down a heathen temple there and build a basilica that's been standing more or less ever since. So, the bit of a problem is, Jesus didn't die in two places, neither did he rise again. So one of us must be wrong. Maybe both of us are wrong. We can't be sure, because I believe God has kept it a secret, because he knows the kind of people we are, because we would be worshipping the site and ignoring the Savior. I mean, we think so much about the gifts, we ignore the giver. Don't get me going, that's another sermon. We must stay here where we are at the moment. Now then, why have we got two sites? That's the question. Why indeed? Well, back in the 1860s or so, there was an edict in Cairo that made a difference up here. Suddenly, and for the first time, you could get into Jerusalem easily. You could get here as tourists without being molested along the way. And so consequently, the place filled with theologians, archaeological experts, Bible students galore. And at the end of the 1800s, the railways came to Jerusalem. And then it all began to happen. The hospices were built in the mid to late 1800s. And where there were question marks over traditional sites, they went looking for alternatives. And seemingly, there'd always been a question mark over the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. There was an English saint by the name of Willibald who said the church was built in the wrong place. And he had quite a following in the 700s. But when Willibald died out, so his followers died out. And it wasn't until, as I say, the mid-1800s that it all began to happen again. And Otto Thenius was a German theologian, and he wrote that he'd found Calvary or Golgotha outside the city wall at the Grotto of Jeremiah. Now, in a moment, we're going up there on that top up there and have a look down at a bus station. Not very exciting, but there it is, a bus station. It wasn't a bus station until 1950. Until then, it was an empty site. When everything else was built in Salahuddin Street and Suleiman Street, that site remained empty. But then after British mandate, the Muslim Council got hold of it and they put a bus station there. Some people worry about a bus station being on the possible site of Christ's crucifixion, but don't worry. Every time you go to a bus station, you're either going to meet someone or you're going somewhere. And every time you go to Calvary, you're going to meet someone and you're going somewhere. Now that's another sermon, but we won't go into that one either. So, this Grotto of Jeremiah, underneath the bus station, is a huge cave where tradition says Jeremiah was imprisoned. And then various other folks homed in on this same area. Now, why did they pick on this site? Well, they went back into the book of Genesis, and there we read that when Abraham lived down in Beersheba, God spoke to him and said, take your son, your only son Isaac, into the land of Moriah, and there offer him as a sacrifice.